You think you can do better, old man? The recruit laughed, handing over his jammed rifle like it was a joke. The armorer didn't respond. He just cleared the chamber, adjusted the sight, and walked to the firing line. What happened in the next 12 seconds would end that kid's ego and become base legend. Welcome to True Human Tales. Before we continue this powerful story of silence, skill, and respect, tell me in the comments, from which city in the world are you watching this video today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community that honors the ones who never needed to brag. The armory sat at the forgotten corner of Camp Lejeune, a squat concrete building with barred windows and a steel door that groaned every time it opened. Most Marines only visited when they had to, when something broke, when something jammed, when their weapon failed them at the worst possible moment. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't where heroes were made, but it was where heroes came when everything else failed, and the man behind the counter never failed them. His name was on a faded tag pinned to his chest, W. Daniels. No rank, no first name, just Daniels. He'd been there longer than anyone could remember. He was in his mid-70s, maybe older. His hair was completely white, cut military regulation despite being civilian. His hands were scarred and steady, marked by decades of handling metal and machinery. He wore the same thing every day: green military trousers, a tan button-up shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows, and reading glasses on a cord around his neck. He didn't smile much, didn't talk much either. When Marines came in with malfunctioning rifles, he'd take the weapon without a word, strip it down in under a minute, diagnose the issue, fix it, reassemble it, and hand it back, all in complete silence. Some of the younger guys thought he was mute, others thought he was just old and bitter, but the senior instructors knew better. They didn't joke around him, they didn't rush him, and they sure as hell didn't disrespect him, not after what happened with Corporal Jensen. The armory was a shrine to precision. Every tool had its place, every spare part was cataloged. The workbench was spotless despite constant use. Along the walls, rifles hung in perfect rows, M4s, M16s, older weapons for training. Daniels moved through this space like a monk in a monastery. Every action was deliberate, every movement had purpose. He didn't waste motion, didn't waste words, didn't waste time. But he noticed everything. He noticed when a Marine favored his left shoulder and adjusted stock length without being asked. He noticed nervous energy before qualifications and smooth trigger pulls to help. He noticed when rifles had been dropped and checked zeros accordingly. He fixed more than weapons. He prevented failures before they happened. But nobody saw this. To most Marines, he was just the old guy who fixed their guns when they broke. A necessary inconvenience, a fixture. They didn't see the precision. They didn't see the decades of experience in every movement until the day Jensen walked in. It was a Tuesday morning in early spring. The range was scheduled for live fire qualifications, and the armory was busier than usual. Marines cycled in and out, picking up weapons, checking serial numbers, signing clipboards. Daniels worked methodically through the crowd, handing out rifles one at a time, inspecting each weapon before it left his counter. Then Jensen walked in. Corporal Michael Jensen was 22, fresh out of infantry training, still riding the high of making it through. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with confident swagger that came from surviving boot camp and believing it made him invincible. He wasn't a bad Marine exactly, but he had that particular arrogance that only came with youth and inexperience, the belief that respect was something you took, not earned. He slapped his hand on the counter hard enough to make the clipboard jump. "Yo, Gramps, I need an M4, and make it quick. I got a qual in 20, and I'm not trying to be late." The armory went quiet. Daniels didn't look up from the rifle he was inspecting. He just set it aside, reached under the counter, and pulled out another M4. He placed it on the counter with a maintenance log. Jensen picked it up, barely glanced at it, and started to walk out. "Sign," Daniels said quietly. Jensen turned, annoyed. "What?" "The log." "Sign it." Jensen rolled his eyes dramatically. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm going to be late." Daniels just pointed at the clipboard. Jensen scribbled something illegible and headed for the door. "And Jensen?" Jensen stopped, surprised the old man knew his name. "Clean your weapon after range time." "Yeah, whatever." The door slammed behind him. 15 minutes later, he was back. And he was pissed. The door flew open. Jensen stormed in, carrying his rifle like a club. "This piece of shit jammed on me," he shouted, slamming the weapon onto the counter. "Third round." "Wouldn't eject. You trying to get me dropped from Qual?" The armory was dead silent. Every Marine stopped what they were doing. Some pretended to examine their weapons, but their eyes kept drifting to the counter. Daniels picked up Jensen's rifle with careful precision. He pulled the charging handle, inspected the chamber, checked the extractor. Then he set it down and looked Jensen in the eye. "You didn't clean it." Jensen's face went purple. "Excuse me?" "Carbon buildup in the chamber, extractors caked with residue. You didn't clean it after your last range day." "That's not my job, old man. That's yours." The words hung in the air like smoke. A staff sergeant standing by the gun rack, Kowalski, 15 years in, 2 deployments to Fallujah, stepped closer. "You got a problem, Corporal?" Kowalski said quietly. Jensen turned. "Nah, Staff Sergeant. Just waiting on Gramps here to do his job instead of giving me attitude." Kowalski's jaw tightened. "You know who that is?" Jensen shrugged. "Some old dude who fixes guns?" "Look, I don't care if he's been here since Vietnam. I got a Qual to finish, and his busted-ass rifle nearly got me dropped." Kowalski stared at Jensen for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly. "You have no idea," he said quietly. "No fucking idea." He walked out, but not before making eye contact with Daniels. A brief nod passed between them. Jensen turned back to Daniels with renewed confidence. "See? Even Staff Sergeant Kowalski knows you screwed up. So how about you fix my rifle and let me get back to qualifying?" Daniels looked at him for another long moment. Then, without a word, he picked up the rifle and walked it to the cleaning station. He began disassembling it. Slowly, methodically, turning a 5-minute job into a 20-minute lesson. Jensen leaned against the counter, smirking. "See that? That's how you handle these old-timers. Respect is a two-way street." A few younger Marines nodded uncertainly, but the older ones just looked away. They knew something Jensen didn't, and they knew he was about to learn it the hard way. Daniels finished cleaning the rifle in 18 minutes. He disassembled it completely, cleaned every component, inspected each part, lubricated surfaces, and reassembled it with methodical precision. When done, the weapon looked better than factory new. He function-checked it 3 times and set it on the counter. Jensen grabbed it without thanks and headed for the door. "Next time, maybe keep your shit squared away from the start, yeah?" Then he was gone. Meanwhile, Kowalski was making phone calls. The first was to Gunnery Sergeant Marsh. "Gunny, it's Kowalski. That new kid Jensen just completely disrespected Daniels, called him old man, blamed him for weapon malfunction, told him to do his job." He said what? Kid has no idea who he's talking to. Jesus Christ, I think it's time this kid learned some history. The second call was to Master Sergeant Williams. "You remember that conversation about Daniels? Some smart-ass corporal just treated him like a janitor. You thinking what I'm thinking? Time someone showed him what real marksmanship looks like." An hour later, Jensen was at the range with his platoon. The rifle worked perfectly now, smoother than ever, but Jensen was still riding his wave of anger, telling anyone who'd listen how he'd put that old man in his place. He was adjusting his gear when he heard gravel crunching behind him. He turned. It was Daniels. The old man walked slowly across the range, hands in his pockets, scanning the shooters. He wasn't hurrying, wasn't making a scene. He just walked to the firing line and stood there, watching. Jensen noticed him first. "Yo, what's the old man doing here?" Rodriguez glanced over. "Probably checking if you broke his rifle again." Laughter from nearby Marines. But Daniels didn't react. He stood still as stone. Then Jensen noticed something else. Senior NCOs were appearing. Kowalski, Marsh Williams, even the sergeant major. "What's going on?" Rodriguez whispered. Then Marsh approached Daniels and handed him something, a rifle, not just any rifle. A MK-12 special purpose rifle, designated marksman weapon, precision built, longer range, the kind requiring special training just to operate. Daniels took it without a word, checking the action, testing the trigger, looking through the scope. Marsh looked at Jensen, then back at Daniels. 10 rounds, he announced loud enough for everyone to hear. 10 targets, timed precision course. Jensen's confidence evaporated. "Wait, what's going on?" Kowalski stepped forward. You wanted to know if he could do better, Corporal. You're about to find out. Word spread faster than wildfire. The old man from the armory is about to shoot. They gave him the Mk-12. Within minutes, nearly the entire range formed a semicircle behind the firing line. 50 Marines, maybe more, all watching in silence. Jensen found himself at the center, no longer enjoying the attention. Master Sergeant Williams stepped up with a stopwatch. 10 targets, ranges from 200 to 600 yards. Par time is 90 seconds. Range record is 58 seconds. He looked directly at Jensen. Set by this man. 12 years ago, Jensen felt blood drain from his face. What? The range record you've been trying to beat? That's his. Daniels walked to lane 6. No stretching, no warm-up, no adjustments. He loaded a magazine, chambered a round, and assumed prone position. His movements were economical, practiced, precise. No wasted motion. Williams raised his hand. Shooter ready? Daniels gave a single nod. The range was silent. Fire. The first shot came impossibly fast. Crack. Target 1, 200 yards. Center ring. Perfect. Before the echo faded, the second round was gone. Crack. Target 2, 250 yards. Another perfect hit. Daniels didn't adjust position, didn't shift grip, didn't change breathing. He just moved the rifle with micro-adjustments, found sight picture, and fired. Crack, crack, crack. The rhythm was hypnotic, mechanical. Each shot followed with heartbeat inevitability. Jensen watched in horror as the man he'd dismissed demonstrated textbook marksmanship. Crack, crack, crack. The crowd had gone completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Crack, crack. For the final shot, Daniels made his only significant adjustment. He elevated slightly, held for wind, and waited. 2 seconds. An eternity. Crack. Target 10, 600 yards. The most difficult shot. Williams clicked the stopwatch. 12.4 seconds, 10 shots, 10 perfect hits, 0 misses. Daniels cleared the chamber, ejected the magazine, and set the rifle gently down. Then he stood, brushed dirt off his pants, and walked back toward the armory. No celebration, no acknowledgement, no eye contact with Jensen. Just silence. For 10 seconds, nobody moved, nobody spoke, nobody breathed. Then someone whispered, "What the hell did we just see?" Williams checked targets downrange. When he returned, his face was pale. He held up the first target, 10 bullet holes, all within the 10 ring, most overlapping. Then the second, same result. Every target was identical. Perfect groupings, professional-level accuracy. Jensen stared like they were written in a foreign language. Kowalski approached with a manila folder. "You want to understand, Corporal?" He pulled out a military portrait from the 1990s, a young Marine in dress blues, ribbons covering his chest, younger face, darker hair, but unmistakably the same man. Staff Sergeant William Daniels, Scout Sniper, Marine Corps Marksmanship Unit, 3 tours Iraq, 2 Afghanistan. Another document, Presidential Unit Citation, Navy Cross, Silver Star with Combat Device, Purple Heart with 3 clusters. Another, Instructor, Scout Sniper School, Chief Instructor, Urban Sniper Course, Senior Marksmanship Instructor for Marine Special Operations Command. Jensen's face was white. "Know why he left active duty?" Kowalski asked. Jensen shook his head. "Medical retirement. Shrapnel in his back during Fallujah. Saved his squad but ended his career." Kowalski closed the folder. "That old man you disrespected? Confirmed kills in 3 countries. Trained half the snipers currently deployed. Only reason he's here fixing your rifles instead of training killers. He can't pass a fitness test anymore." He let that sink in. Next time you want to tell someone to do their job, find out what their job used to be. The crowd dispersed slowly, voices hushed and respectful. What had started as normal qualification became a lesson in humility none would forget. Jensen stood alone, staring at target sheets propped against a post. He felt hollow, like someone had removed something essential. For the first time in his adult life, he understood how little he knew. That evening, someone brought newspaper articles from the base library. Marine Sniper Team credited with saving battalion. Urban Combat Instructor receives Navy Cross. Wounded Marine continues mission despite injuries. Each mentioned Staff Sergeant William Daniels. Jensen read them all twice. Stories of a Marine who served with distinction for 20 years. wounded multiple times but kept returning, made impossible shots, trained the Corps' best marksmen. At career's end, when his body couldn't take more, he quietly retired to fix weapons for young Marines who didn't know his name. Jensen set the papers aside and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he'd have to face Daniels again. Everything had changed. 2 weeks later, Jensen returned to the armory. No slamming doors, no demands. He walked in quietly, waited his turn, approached the counter slowly. "Sir," he said quietly, setting his rifle down gently. Daniels looked up. No recognition of their encounter, no resentment, no expectation of apology. Just professional attention. "What's the problem?" "I cleaned it this time, completely. But I think the gas block's misaligned, shooting high and right despite sight adjustments." Daniels examined it methodically, checked gas block, tested barrel, looked through bore. "I'll take a look. 15 minutes. "Thank you, sir." Jensen started away, then stopped. "Sir? I want to apologize for before, for how I talked to you. I was out of line." Daniels studied him. "Your rifle will be ready in 15 minutes. Not acceptance, not forgiveness, not anger, just professionalism." 15 minutes later, Daniels called him back. The rifle sat reassembled with handwritten notes beside it. Gas block was canted 2 degrees, realigned and retorqued, also adjusted trigger pull, too heavy for precision work. Jensen picked up the rifle. It felt different, smoother, balanced. "How much do I owe?" "Nothing." "Covered under maintenance?" Jensen hesitated. "Sir, how did you learn to shoot like that?" Daniels was quiet, finally. "Practice. A lot of practice." "How long did it take?" Another pause. "I'm still practicing. Some men teach with words, others teach with presence. William Daniels never needed a classroom or speeches. He showed up, did the work, and when someone doubted him, he let his hands do the talking. Respect isn't given because someone demands it. It's earned in 12 seconds of perfection, in silence, in discipline, in a life spent serving others when nobody's watching. Jensen learned that respect flows both ways, that the quiet ones often have the loudest stories, that before you judge someone's present, you should understand their past. And Daniels? He just kept fixing rifles, preventing failures, helping young Marines succeed, because that's what warriors do. They serve. Even when the war's over, even when nobody knows their name. So I ask you, have you met someone like William Daniels, someone who never bragged but whose skill spoke louder than words? Share their story in the comments, say their name, because at the Human Stories, we believe the greatest legends don't shout, they wait. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, share, and help us honor the quiet warriors who shape the world without asking for credit. Until next time, if you meet someone who moves with calm certainty, don't mock them. Learn from them.